Welcome to Hollywood, the capital of dazzling lights, where the truth is sometimes even more dramatic than the scripts themselves. What do you see on the red carpet? Perfect smiles, stunning gowns. But look closer. Behind that glamorous layer of makeup lies secrets buried for decades. Today we're not talking about scandals. We're talking about extraordinary courage. Do you believe that one of the world's most captivating lingerie supermodels was once a young boy from the slums of Manila? Did one of the greatest symbols of American Olympic masculinity live in painful hiding for 65 years before daring to become their true self? Brace yourself, because the final name on this list might completely change the way you see Hollywood legends. But before we unlock these classified files, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and comment ready below to support our channel. Now let's step into the world of identities long kept in the shadows. Let's begin in the world of high fashion, a place where appearance is everything. Yet sometimes that very appearance becomes a prison for the soul within. In the early 2010s, the modeling world was shaken by the rise of a striking phenomenon, André Pejic, a male model who possessed an almost unreal, perfectly androgynous beauty. Jean-Paul Gaultier, Marc Jacobs, every top designer wanted this young talent on their runway. He could slip into a men's suit with effortless charm, then instantly transform into a breathtaking couture wedding gown and portray a bride so convincingly. The world called it versatility, a gift from the heavens. But to Andrea, it was nothing more than a beautiful glass cage. Born amid the smoke and fire of war in Bosnia and raised in Australia, she had always felt that this body, this name, was never truly hers. Imagine being praised by the entire world for an image you know deep down isn't really you. The fashion industry adored her gender-ambiguous look. They profited from that uniqueness. But they never cared about the pain of the person living inside. The year 2014 marked a life-or-death turning point in her career. Andrea made the decision to undergo gender confirmation surgery. You have to understand, at that time, this choice was considered career suicide. Modeling agencies warned her, "You'll lose what makes you unique. You'll become just another beautiful girl among thousands of beautiful girls. You'll lose all your contracts." But Andrea chose truth over safety. She returned to the world with her real name, Andrea Pejic, and something remarkable happened. Her authenticity didn't diminish her appeal. It ignited an entirely new fire. She became the first openly transgender model to appear on the cover of GQ Portugal and the first transgender woman ever to sign a major beauty contract. Andrea's journey proves one powerful truth: when you dare to risk everything for your true identity, the universe will not abandon you. Now let's travel back to the 1940s and 1950s, the era of black and white cinema, sharp-suited gentlemen, and dazzling evening-gowned ladies. It was the golden age of Hollywood. In a time when everything was tightly censored under the Hays Code, a system that strictly banned any depiction of homosexuality on screen, one woman quietly shattered those boundaries simply by living her truth: Barbara Stanwyck. She was a legend, one of the greatest actresses of all time. But what made Barbara truly captivating wasn't just her talent. It was her fierce, independent aura, a presence so powerful it sometimes overshadowed her male co-stars. In 1962, she shocked audiences when she portrayed a lesbian madam in the film Walk on the Wild Side. For many, it was simply acting. But for the underground LGBTQ+ community in Hollywood at the time, it was a subtle, deliberate wink, a quiet signal hidden in plain sight. Hollywood history has long whispered about so-called lavender marriages, carefully arranged unions between stars meant to hide their true sexual orientation and protect their public image. Barbara Stanwyck married twice, but both marriages have been widely suspected of being immaculate facades. Her close 3-decade relationship with her publicist Helen Ferguson, along with rumors of an affair with the audacious and free-spirited actress Tallulah Bankhead, all paint the portrait of a woman living between two worlds. One side was the A-list star who played by Hollywood's rules. The other side was the woman who longed to love in her own way. Whatever the truth may be, Barbara Stanwyck's legacy remains that of resilience, a woman who dared to be strong in a world that expected women to obey. And it is precisely the tension between the dazzling spotlight and the secrets behind the curtain that made Barbara a legend time can never erase. We often define masculinity through physical strength and athletic triumphs. And no one embodied the peak of American masculinity in the 1970s more than Bruce Jenner. In 1976, at the Montreal Olympics, when Bruce sprinted across the finish line and raised his arms in victory in the decathlon, the entire nation erupted in celebration. Bruce was hailed as the greatest man in the world. That image appeared on cereal boxes in newspapers everywhere, becoming a symbol of national pride. Bruce was the ideal every boy wanted to become, and every girl wanted to date. But the tragedy was this: the greatest man in the world. Every night he came home felt like he was living in a body that didn't belong to him. The story of Caitlyn Jenner is an epic of lifelong suppression. Imagine having to play the role of a superhero for 65 years, while inside you were simply a frightened woman longing to be seen. Having gone through 3 marriages and raising one of the most famous families on the planet, the Kardashian-Jenner dynasty, that secret still lingered like a shadow. There were moments when Bruce tried taking hormones only to stop again, out of fear of society's judgment. The decision to come out in 2015 wasn't just entertainment news, it was a cultural earthquake. When the cover of Vanity Fair was released with the headline, "Call Me Caitlyn," it shattered every internet record at the time. A 65-year-old Olympic athlete, once the embodiment of masculinity, now appeared radiant and relieved in the form of a woman. Despite the many debates surrounding her politics or personal life, no one can deny Caitlyn's courage. She showed the world one simple truth: it is never too late to live authentically. You can spend an entire lifetime trying to please others, but the moment you choose to live for yourself, that is when you truly win the most precious gold medal of your life. In modern pop culture, RuPaul's Drag Race has become a massive launching pad, and Carmen Carrera is one of the brightest stars to emerge from it. In Season 3, Carmen captivated audiences with her stunning physical beauty. People adored her as a drag queen, a performer, and artist. But here's where we need to draw a clear line. Drag is an art form, makeup, costume, performance. Being transgender is an identity. It is who a person truly is. Behind the bright lights of the show, Carmen realized that being a drag queen was no longer enough to express who she truly was. She wasn't performing as a woman, she was a woman. Carmen began her medical gender transition and chose to share it publicly. But this new journey led her into an even tougher battle, a fight against prejudice from within her own community. Carmen bravely spoke out against the show's use of certain language, specifically terms like she-male and the segment female or she-male. She argued that while these phrases might seem entertaining, they unintentionally dehumanized transgender women, turning their bodies into a punchline. Her stance sparked intense backlash from fans of the show and even created tension with RuPaul himself. Despite the storm, Carmen refused to stay silent, choosing dignity and respect over popularity. But Carmen didn't back down. She accepted being disliked in order to protect the dignity of her community. Today, Carmen Carrera is not just a stunning lingerie model who once walked the Victoria's Secret runway. She is a sharp, fearless human rights advocate. She has taught us a powerful lesson about growth. Sometimes you must stand up even to the very people who once lifted you, if that is what it takes to protect truth and human dignity. Being born the child of a legend is hard, but being born the child of the goddess of pop, Cher, and Sonny Bono multiplies that pressure 100-fold. In 1969, a baby girl named Chastity Bono entered the world and instantly became the center of American media attention. The adorable blonde little girl appeared on her parents' television show packaged as a sweet, picture-perfect princess. The whole world watched Chastity grow up. But no one saw the storm unfolding inside that child. Chastity grew up in a state of overwhelming disconnection. Being forced to wear dresses to act gentle and graceful in front of the cameras felt like pure torment. And when Chastity came out as a lesbian in the 1990s, the media tore him apart. But even the label lesbian wasn't entirely accurate. It was only a temporary stop on a long, painful journey of self-discovery. It wasn't until the age of 40, after decades of battling depression and addiction rooted in gender dysphoria, that Chastity finally found the answer he had been searching for. He was a man. Chaz Bono's decision to transition in 2008 sent shockwaves through the entertainment world. Cher, his mother, a global icon adored by the gay community, was initially stunned. It was incredibly difficult for her to accept that the little daughter she once held was now a middle-aged man. But maternal love and deep understanding eventually prevailed. Chaz's journey was captured in the documentary Becoming Chaz, which lays bare the physical and emotional pain of the transition process, honest, raw, and profoundly human. Today, Chaz Bono is a true actor, shedding the label of celebrity's child and proving himself through his work on American Horror Story. His story reminds us of one powerful truth. Even if you are born into luxury, the battle to reclaim your identity is still the loneliest and most brutal fight of all, and it is precisely that journey that transformed Chaz into a symbol of courage for anyone struggling to find their true voice amid the noise of expectations and public judgment. If you believe Chaz's journey is truly inspiring, leave a 1. If you're not completely convinced yet, leave a 0. Enjoy the full video and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support us in bringing you more powerful and emotional stories. Every comment and bit of support from you is the motivation that helps us continue sharing these incredible journeys with the world. We now move into a completely different battlefield, a place with no script, only sweat and blood, the MMA octagon. Fallon Fox. A name that once stood at the center of one of the most heated debates in combat sports history. Born in Ohio, Fallon endured a tormented childhood, forced into the mold of a strong black boy. Her family, especially her father, attempted to use so-called conversion therapy to fix her, leaving deep psychological scars that would follow her for years. Fallon ran away, supporting herself by working long-haul trucking to save enough money for gender-affirming surgery in Thailand in 2006. After finally reclaiming her body, she discovered a passion for jiu-jitsu and MMA. She competed as a regular female fighter and she won. But when the truth about her past was revealed, the MMA world erupted. She faced slurs, accusations of having an unfair biological advantage, and even death threats. The backlash was swift, brutal, and deeply personal. Many people ignored the years of training she put in. They saw only a man hitting women an accusation as cruel as it was dehumanizing. It was a horrifying insult. But Fallon Fox stood firm in the eye of the storm. She complied with every medical requirement, every hormone test, every regulation needed to prove she was fully eligible to compete. She stepped into the cage not just to defeat opponents, but to fight the deeper, heavier battle, destroying the prejudice that transgender athletes have no place in elite sports. Even though her competitive career has come to an end, Fallon Fox will forever be the Queen of Blades, the woman who used her fists to pry open the narrow iron gate of sports prejudice. She didn't just fight opponents inside the cage. She fought an entire system that constantly questioned her worth. Every strike she threw was a declaration that a person's identity cannot be defined by someone else's fear. And no matter how long the debates continue, the name Fallon Fox will remain an indelible milestone in the history of modern sports. Let's talk about a concept within the transgender community known as stealth, in simple terms, going underground. It refers to when a transgender person fully blends into society as their true gender, with no one knowing their past and their medical history kept completely hidden. It is a form of protection, but also an invisible prison. And no one understood that glittering glass cage more deeply than Gina Rochero. For more than 1 decade, Gina was the embodiment of the so-called American dream. A sizzling lingerie supermodel in New York, she possessed radiant honey-brown skin, expressive eyes, and the signature tropical smile that could light up an entire runway. Top photographers chased after her, men desired her, and women admired her. To her colleagues, she was simply a lucky Filipina girl blessed with flawless genetics. But none of them knew that before she strutted down the elite runways of Manhattan, that same woman had once been an uncrowned queen in the cramped, narrow alleyways of Manila. At 15 years old, Gina was already a star in the world of transgender beauty pageants in the Philippines, a place where transgender people are culturally embraced, yet their opportunities for a better life remain painfully limited. When she immigrated to the United States, Gina made the biggest gamble of her life. She changed her documents, completed her surgeries, and chose to bury her past. She became a 100% woman in the eyes of society. Her career soared. She gained wealth, fame, and love. But the price of that perfection was a fear that ate away at her every single day. Imagine living at the peak of success, yet every time you walk through an airport security gate, every time you have to show identification, or even during a simple medical checkup, your heart tightens in terror. The fear of being exposed. The fear of being seen as a fraud. The fear that everything you have built could collapse because of a single letter M male hidden somewhere in an old birth record. She had always felt like an imposter in her own life. The greater the success, the heavier the weight of the secret. And then came the defining moment on March 31st, 2014, Transgender Day of Visibility. Gina did the unthinkable. She stepped onto the TED Talk stage in Vancouver. In front of thousands of people in the live audience and millions more watching from their screens, the woman with the flawless exterior stood trembling as she held the microphone. Those 9 minutes on that stage felt like an entire century of pent-up truth, finally breaking free. With a voice trembling yet resolute, she declared, "I was assigned male at birth." That sentence wasn't just a confession, it was the shattering of a shell she had spent 12 years carefully constructing. In that moment, she accepted the risk of losing every modeling contract, losing the admiration of the men who once adored her. But in exchange, she found something worth infinitely more freedom. Gina didn't just liberate herself. She became a lighthouse for millions, still living in the shadows for those terrified of their own truth. She founded the organization Gender Proud to fight for the right to have one's gender legally recognized. The story of Gina Rosero teaches us a profound truth. Real peace does not come from how well you hide, nor from how perfectly you play a role. Peace comes only when you dare to stand in the brightest, rawest light, exposing even the scars of your past, and declare to the world, "This is me. Accept all of me or walk away, because I will no longer run." We cannot talk about Hollywood without mentioning the rebel without a cause, James Dean. Though he starred in only 3 major films before his tragic death at the age of 24, James Dean became an immortal symbol of cool rebellion, raw emotion, and the lonely ache of youth. But what lay behind those melancholic eyes? Official history records his romances with famous actresses. But Hollywood's hidden diaries tell a very different story, one whispered in shadows, protected by studio contracts, and buried beneath decades of silence. Close friends and later biographers have long hinted that James Dean may have been bisexual or gay. His complicated relationships with actor Sal Mineo and producer Rogers Brackett have remained subjects of endless debate. So why mention James Dean in this list when he never came out publicly? Because James Dean represents an entire generation of Hollywood men who were forced to bury their true selves in order to preserve the manufactured image of a leading man. His famous response when asked about his sexuality, "No, I am not a homosexual, but I am also not going to go through life with one hand tied behind my back," was a declaration far ahead of its time. It revealed a mindset that rejected rigid labels and refused to let society dictate the boundaries of identity. Whatever the truth about James Dean may be, the sensitivity and fragility in his performances stand as proof of a soul unchained by the toxic standards of masculinity that dominated his era. If James Dean or Barbara Stanwyck had to live in the shadows, then Jazz Jennings is the child who grew up entirely under the spotlight. Imagine knowing exactly who you are when you're barely old enough to walk. At just 2 or 3 years old, Jazz insisted she was a girl, even though her body said otherwise. But the greatest blessing in Jazz's life wasn't fame, it was her extraordinary family. A family that chose to listen instead of forcing her into a mold. At 6 years old, her interview with journalist Barbara Walters stunned the entire nation. A little child calmly and clearly explaining gender identity with unwavering certainty. From that moment on, Jazz became the face of a new transgender generation. Her reality show, I Am Jazz, is more than entertainment. It is a public medical and psychological diary. Viewers watched her struggle with puberty blockers, the challenges of dating, and the intense pain of her major gender-affirming surgery. Through every step, Jazz showed the world what it truly means to grow up as yourself. Jazz sacrificed the privacy of her childhood to educate the world. She showed us that transgender children are not influenced, not following a trend. It is a deep, innate understanding of who they are at their very core. Her resilience, standing strong against thousands of cruel comments on social media every single day, has become a source of inspiration for anyone who has ever felt different. And through her brave, undeniable existence, Jazz proved that living authentically is not a luxury. It is a fundamental human right, one that every person deserves. And finally, we come to the woman who brought the very concept of transgender into the living rooms of modern American families, Laverne Cox. Before Laverne, transgender characters on screen were almost always tragedies, sex workers, victims, punchlines, or shadows on the margins. But Laverne Cox, through her portrayal of Sophia Bursette in Orange is the New Black, changed everything. She gave the world a character with depth, intelligence, love, and dignity, a fully realized human being, not a stereotype. But to reach that pinnacle, Laverne had to walk through hell. Growing up in Alabama, a deeply conservative region of the American South, young Laverne was brutally bullied for her femininity. The pain was so immense that at 11 years old she contemplated ending her life, believing she was a sin. But she survived. She transformed her pain into art, her difference into strength. Laverne Cox became the first transgender person ever nominated for an Emmy for acting and the first transgender person to appear on the cover of Time magazine. Her powerful quote, "It's not about what other people think of me, it's about what I think of myself," has become a guiding light for a new generation. Her journey from a child in Alabama who once wanted to end her life to a dazzling superstar on the Hollywood red carpet stands as the clearest proof of all: when you dare to live your truth, the world will eventually bow to the beauty of your authenticity. Closing today's file, we realize one thing beneath the bright glow of the spotlight. The hardest role isn't played on screen, it's daring to live as your true self. Do you know any other silent heroes who had the courage to break through prejudice? Share your thoughts and join the discussion in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next hidden Hollywood story. Thank you for watching, and remember, always shine in your own way.